NFL show, as always, is brought to you by Manscaped. Check out the promo code TGT20 to get 20% off and free shipping. Today, I am your host, Mike Goodpaster. We're going to go over Sam Teets, my lovely co-host, NFL Power Rankings. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great, Mike. How about you?
I am great. And, of course, we have our special guest, Sam McGinnis. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing pretty good.
All right, so let's go ahead and get to this. The NFL Power Rankings. Number 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 2, the Buffalo Bills. Number 3, the New Orleans Saints. Number 4, Tennessee. Sam McGinnis, what do you think?
I think these are actually pretty solid, though I find it's weird that Buffalo, it's the proper ranking, I think, to put Buffalo at number 2, but it just feels weird because there's such a gap, I feel like, between them and Kansas City. You would have assumed there's another team there, but there's not.
Well, I don't think there's a gap. I think Buffalo will beat Kansas City in the playoffs.
That wouldn't particularly hurt my feelings.
Would it surprise you?
Mike's been riding this idea that Buffalo beat Kansas City in the playoffs for over a month now. Well over at this point, Mike, right? You've been saying it for like 6 weeks, maybe longer at this point.
Yeah, and you mocked me at first, but now you've got Buffalo ranked number 2, Sam.
They've got that defense. You have to admit, the defense has gotten so much better the past, I want to say, 6 weeks. They've improved a lot. This is beginning to look like the defense we saw last year for Buffalo, which was really elite in carrying that offense. Now you got Josh Allen. I think I had number 3 in my quarterback power rankings yesterday. I think I had number 3. So now you got an elite quarterback who's potentially an MVP candidate. Stephon Diggs and a borderline elite defense. So I think you have to put them number 2. Even though I know the Saints have a lot of good players, I still think Buffalo is number 2 right now.
All right. Saints at 3, Titans at 4, Bucks at 5, Packers at 6. My first thought of this is I think the Saints are going to be the best team in the NFC. You have them ranked as the best team in the NFC. I would not right now, even though Tampa Bay beat Green Bay, I would not have Green Bay below Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I'm with him on that one.
I had the idea of putting Green Bay ahead of Tampa Bay, and I kind of switched it the last second this morning. I was going back and giving them one final look before publishing it. And it did come down to that, a little bit of that flashback to that game when Tampa Bay just stomped on Green Bay. I think Rodgers is playing a decent little. We did see against Jacksonville, they struggled against Carolina this past week. There have been times where Green Bay has really struggled against weak teams. I know Tampa Bay's done the same thing basically, but I still think that the Bucs have a defense capable of pushing Green Bay. Green Bay does not have the same thing on their side. They don't have that defense that's going to push Tom Brady the way Tampa Bay's defense will harass Aaron Rodgers.
Well, my question is this, though. Can Tampa Bay run the ball against Green Bay? Everybody runs the ball against Green Bay, but that's been Tampa Bay's problem. I would say this. I think it's safe to say, correct me if I'm wrong, if Green Bay beats Tennessee, you would probably jump Green Bay above Tampa Bay.
I would probably have Green Bay and Tennessee ahead of Tampa Bay at that point.
Yeah, and I like the Titans. And Sam McGinnis, I think the Titans are a team that can beat Kansas City. I don't think there's as big a difference as you think there is in the AFC.
I think the Titans might be more of a kryptonite for the Chiefs, especially if they get Derrick Henry going. But it's just my concern. The Chiefs are still the team to beat, but I'd be happy with either one of those teams getting it done. I do think there's at least somewhat of a gap between the Bills and the Chiefs.
All right, number 7, with Indianapolis Colts. Number 8, the Cleveland Browns. Sam McGinnis, I know you're a hater of the Cleveland Browns. What do you think about this ranking?
I don't know. Again, this goes back to a little bit of what I said about the Bills, where it feels like they shouldn't be this high, but who on earth are you going to put above them? Like, it's not the Dolphins. But there's definitely holes with Cleveland. They're going to be out in like the first or second round. So just enjoy the fact that you have a winning season for once.
That's mean, Sam, coming from a Detroit Lions fan.
Yeah, occasionally we have 9 and 7 seasons.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, this is better than a 9-7 season. And also 4 to 6 weeks ago, I said the Cleveland Browns would win the AFC North. I was mocked there too. So once again, I was right, Sam Teets. You know I'm right. The Steelers are going down. I am scrolling through this. I'm to number 9, and I still don't see your Steelers. So I think the Cleveland Browns belong there. I think Baker Mayfield has showed improvement. I still worry about him on the big stage in the playoffs. The Indianapolis Colts are a team that I think a lot of how far they could go depends on what happens this week. I mean, they have to beat Pittsburgh. And really, Green Bay, Tennessee, if Green Bay was to beat Tennessee, the Colts are probably going to win the division then. and I think it gives them an easier road to the playoffs. When we look at this, are the Colts a Super Bowl contender, Sam Teets?
Realistically, I don't think so. There's a chance here the Colts actually don't make the playoffs at all if they end up losing out here into the year. I think they'll win at least one of these final 2 games. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, though. They have a good defense. They have guys like Darius Leonard and DeForest shut down a run-heavy team potentially like Cleveland. I could see them beating the Browns, but I don't think they're a good matchup for Tennessee. I don't think they're a really good matchup for Kansas City because they just can't score the way that a team like the Chiefs can or the way that Buffalo can. Because Philip Rivers has been an efficient quarterback. He hasn't turned the ball over. But they don't have the same offensive firepower that you'll get from a team like Tennessee. Tennessee is a much better passing game than I think Indianapolis doing. So I think they will be eliminated because their offense is limited in how much they can score.
All right, how about this? When I look at this with the Cleveland Browns and the Indianapolis Colts, though, Sam McGinnis, I would think that the Browns are more dangerous in the playoffs just because of Chubb and Hunt.
I don't know. I feel like Indianapolis's defense might help him out a bit, but I kind of have a side question for Teets here on the Colts a little bit. Could you, despite the fact that normally you would say that they're not a Super Bowl contender, could you see them as more of a dark horse from the AFC?
No, because I feel very confident in not just Kansas City, but also Buffalo and Tennessee. So in my idea right now, there's no dark horse. There's no Tennessee like there was last year, in my opinion, because Tennessee is there this year, because you have Buffalo and you have – even when we look back and look at the teams that were high rated last season going to the playoffs, it's really just Baltimore and Kansas City, and Kansas City ended up pulling it through when Tennessee kind of surprises us all. I don't think that's going to happen this year just because of how top-heavy it is with Buffalo, the Titans, and the Chiefs, who can all do pretty much everything you want out of a Super Bowl contender.
All right, how about this? I've got your dark horse in the AFC. I think the dark horse in the AFC is the Miami Dolphins. And I think we saw that when they played Kansas City with the 3 picks, Xavier Howard. I think they have maybe the best secondary in football. I think Tua Tagovailoa is a special player. I know that, guys like Steve Risley will say it's too soon to say that. But if you're special, you're special. It doesn't matter when it is. So I think the Dolphins, to me, would be the dark horse. And that's with the pass defense against Kansas City. So I think your dark horse, your Tennessee from last year, would be Miami this year, Sam Teets.
That's probably your best comparison. They've shown they have decent players offensively. They obviously were missing Jakeem Grant, Mike Gesicki, and Devontae Parker this past weekend. But if you get all 3 of those guys back and healthy for the playoffs, those are your top 3 receiving options. And that's an elite wide receiver, a top 10 tight end, and even the running game. You don't have an elite running back, but the running game's actually worked out fairly well for Miami. I do think the crux of this whole situation, though, is that defense. And we saw intercept Patrick Mahomes 3 times. It would really come down to how they perform against teams like the Titans with Ryan Tannehill and the Bills with Josh Allen.
All right, next up, you get the Seattle Seahawks at 10, which they've dropped big time. The Baltimore Ravens at 11. The LA Rams at 12. The Arizona Cardinals at 13. I can tell you this. I think that the Rams and the Cardinals should both be ahead of Baltimore, Sam McGinnis.
Yeah, I don't really trust Baltimore or Seattle for that matter. Seattle should be up there, but the thing for me is when Seattle gets to the playoffs, there's so many questions for me. I don't know if they'll be able to go anywhere unless Russell Wilson carries them to a win or 2 in the playoffs, but I'm not even sure he'll be able to do that.
Well, I think when you look at the NFC is a mess. The Seattle Seahawks would be my dark horse in the NFC just because of Russell Wilson, because I think all these teams outside of the Saints, if they're healthy, which is a big if right now, Sam Teets, I think Seattle is the team that may be able to make a run. And really, I think anybody that gets in the NFC has a shot.
No, I agree with you there. And like you said, the Seahawks have Russell Wilson. That's the key it factor there. The Saints are going to move without Michael Thomas here towards the end of the season. If you don't have him going to the playoffs, Drew Brees obviously coming off a major injury. We'll see how that all plays out. I think Seattle has to be in the conversation because of Russell Wilson. I trust Russell Wilson, but I don't necessarily trust Seattle's coaching staff. I don't always trust their defense, even though Jamal Adams and Carlos Dunlap have been playing a lot better. So if we're being realistic here, I trust the top 9 teams on this list, and after that, numbers 10 through 13, I can see those teams potentially making, well, besides Baltimore, maybe potentially making playoff runs. But realistically, I don't through 13 at all because they just have so many flaws, and they are different teams week to week. They're so bipolar. I don't know if I can put my faith in any one of these teams here.
Yeah, and I think with being a wild card, I think the Baltimore Ravens are probably one and done, McGinnis.
Yeah, they've been kind of more of a mess this year, maybe partially because of their surprising loss last year, but it is going to be interesting to see how Lamar Jackson performs under another playoff, because if he continues to have problems, there's going to become serious questions at this point, because that'll have been 3 now.
He will have serious problems. They do finish with the Giants and the Bengals. I think the Giants could be a difficult game for them. They should beat the Bengals. Everybody should beat the Bengals, but the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't. Number 12, we've got the Los Angeles Rams, which I think great defense, capable of beating anybody. But Jared Goff, I don't think that when I look at them, Sam Teets, and we consider a Super Bowl run, I can see Goff playing 1, maybe even 2 real good games, but he's going to peter out because they're not very good with Jared Goff. He's not consistent. He's not going to put together a 3-game stretch to get him to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and when you're playing the Jets, you don't necessarily even have to be consistent. The Jets, you should be able to play them to the point where you can handle them with like baby gloves pretty much. You don't have to take them very seriously. And yet, Jared Goff still found a way to play pretty poorly when they went up against them. I don't think Goff can win a Super Bowl. I really don't. I don't think the Rams can win a Super Bowl as long as they have Goff. I don't care how good this defense is. I don't care if you have the best defensive tackle and cornerback in football or the best receiving core in football. As long as you have Jared quarterback, I can't trust you to make a 3-game run in the playoffs and actually win a Super Bowl.
All right, next up, 13, the Arizona Cardinals, 14, the Washington Redskins. When we look at these guys, I think that it's safe to say the Redskins should win the NFC East. With that defensive front, if Alex Smith's healthy and Antonio Gibson's healthy, this is a team that could win a game or 2 in the playoffs, McGinnis.
Yeah, it's actually it reminds you a little bit then of the little bit of the spark you saw from the Seattle Seahawks when they went 7-9. But I would think 7-9 is about where you're looking at with this team.
Yeah, and the thing is this, the one difference, though, between them and that Seattle team is this is a better football team because they have a dominant defensive front, Sam Teets. And if you have a dominant defensive front, you could ask the undefeated New England Patriots from Super Bowl 42 when they went up against the New York Giants with a dominant defensive front. You can win any game you play. And we saw them almost beat Seattle this week. We saw them beat Pittsburgh. This is a dangerous football team right now. And when I look at the Cardinals, they're dangerous because they may score 30 points, but they're not the same kind of dangerous. I actually would have the Washington Redskins ahead of Arizona right now.
I can understand that. My main concern, though, for them is they're not healthy. That's my problem with Washington is they don't have Gibson, and we don't know if Gibson's going to play this weekend, by the way. It hasn't been determined yet, and it hasn't been determined if Alex Smith is going to play this weekend. So we have a situation where you're missing 2 of your 3 best offensive players, and granted, that defense is very good. I fully acknowledge that. And they've got like 5 or 6 first-round picks invested up front. And you can ask Denver when they had Peyton Manning in his final year of his career where he's basically throwing more picks than touchdowns. You can have a dominant defensive front and win Super Bowls. But the issue is I just don't know if they're healthy. I just don't know if the pieces offensively. You get Gibson and Smith back for a playoff run, you could win 1 or 2 games. But if you don't have those guys, then you're not going anywhere.
Now, the awesome thing here is, McGinnis, if you notice, the Pittsburgh Steelers are now 15th on a Pittsburgh Steeler fan who is obviously frustrated. Top 32 list. Even though they're 11-3, he has them behind the 6-8 Washington Redskins. I'm not going to call them the football team because that's stupid. They're the Washington Redskins, and Cleveland are still the Indians. But when we look at this, McGinnis, who like a month ago said this team was dead and wouldn't win another game? Do you know anybody like that?
The Steelers or the
Me. I said that about the Steelers.
Okay.
Well, wait a second. In fairness, I did think they would win 1 game, but they didn't because they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, you thought they would beat the Bengals, but turns out that you were wrong about that one. They just that one though.
I was wrong that they suck even worse than I thought they did. I think this. I don't even think the Pittsburgh Steelers should be allowed to qualify for the playoffs because they're just going to go in and they're going to get hammered. And the way I see this playing out is they will lose to Cleveland to lose the division on the last game of the season. And then the next week, they'll travel back to Cleveland to get embarrassed again, and their season will end with 6 straight losses, 3 of them being to the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. That's pretty awesome. That's a great way to finish the season.
Oh,
It's a great win for Cincinnati Bengals fans, but I don't think Pittsburgh will really enjoy that. I'm hoping for just 1 win here. I don't care if it's against Cleveland or against Indy. I just want 1 win here to end the season, clinch the division in the regular season. Even if we lose in the first round, I just want a division and not say that Cleveland actually won a division. We have to keep them from winning one, just in general. I don't want Cleveland doing this.
They're going to win it. I mean, I don't know why you'd be so upset about it. I mean, you guys have won enough. You can watch the History Channel and see all the great things you've done. 16 to Chicago Bears, 17 to Vikings, 18 to Eagles, 19 to New England Patriots. I don't have any problem with this, McGinnis. Do you?
No, and I think I heard an interesting thing about Jalen Hurts. I don't remember who said it, but someone said they should have started Jalen Hurts as soon as possible. And the way he's playing now, I tend to agree with him.
There is nobody in the world that thought Jalen Hurts should have started at the start of the season. So whoever said that's a moron, they're an idiot. Jalen Hurts has done a great job. I think Jalen Hurts is the quarterback of the future as long as he finishes strong these last 2 games. But I don't think anybody in their right mind really thought Jalen Hurts should start right away, or somebody would have picked him in the first round, Teets.
Philadelphia would have picked him in the first round if they thought he could start right away, or maybe they wouldn't have because they would have believed in Carson Wentz. But for whatever the reason, he's playing fantastic right now. I am going to be interested to see if teams start catching on here and start watching tape, and maybe that helps them through. But right now, he's succeeding behind a terrible offensive line that's missing some of its best players in Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson. Jason Peters is old as hell, and frankly, I mean, he's exceeding all expectations without any great wide receivers, with beat-up tight ends. He's going to be the star next year. I think Carson Wentz is done in Philly.
Yeah, unless Hurts really stinks up the place in the next 2 weeks. 19 to Patriots. I think Bill Belichick's gotten out of what that team, what he could get out of that team. I think the fact that he's won 6 games with Cam Newton going 7 for 18 for every game will say all you need to know about him. Number 20, the Raiders. And I think this comes back to this. I watched the Raiders in that game. They lost, was the Chargers a week ago when they still had a chance to make the playoffs. I think John Gruden is still the most overrated football coach in the world. I think he's an average coach. And it seems to me in the biggest situations, his butthole gets really tight, Teets.
That's a fun way of putting it. But I think, what is his contract? Was it 10 years, $100 million? He's going to be there for a long, long time. You better get used to seeing this, Raider fans. Second half of the season, collapses are now a staple in Las Vegas.
Hey, but at least they get to collapse in the second half instead of the first half, the way they did most of the last 20 years. Number 21, the Chargers. Number 22, the Dallas Cowboys. Number 23, the New York Giants. I believe the New York Giants should be ahead of the Chargers and the Cowboys, Teets.
With respect to that, I just don't trust the quarterback. I think the quarterback play in both Los Angeles and Dallas is better. I understand the defensive front for New York is great. They got Leonard Williams, Lawrence. It's a very good defensive front.
How about this? More important than the quarterback play is this. I think Joe Judge is a very good football coach. I think Mike McCarthy is a joke. I think Anthony Lynn is a joke, and they both should be fired.
Yeah, I agree. Anthony Lynn's at least going to be fired. I think McCarthy should be as well. But at the same point, Giants haven't exactly lit up the past couple of games. They got 7 points against Arizona and 6 points against Cleveland. Those are not exactly elite defenses. So if you can't win those games or can't even put points on the board in those games, I don't know how you perform against Dallas or Los Angeles.
Well, Los Angeles got shut out a couple weeks ago.
That's true. By another very well coached team in New England.
Yeah, but they got shut out. So let's not put too much into the Justin Herbert train. All right, next up, 24 to Panthers, 25 Sam's Detroit Lions, 26 the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Falcons are right where they should be. I think the Lions are where they should be. I think the Panthers are where they should be. 27 Houston, 28 Denver. I mean, what happens in Detroit, Sam? Does Matt Stafford get traded?
That's tough. I would say it's 50-50, but I'm going with he will. My only thing about that, though, is right now we need a defense. So then getting rid of the one piece of the team you actually have, if you're actually trying to succeed and you think you can now. So I guess it comes back to what the coach thinks he's going to be able to do. If the coach actually thinks he can win with this core, which he probably can't, but if he actually thinks that, he'll start investing into the defense and hold on to Stafford. But if he's just going to rip it all up and rebuild, then he'll get rid of Matthew Stafford. So it kind of depends on his mentality coming in.
Well, I think Matthew Stafford's young enough. If I'm going in there, I want Matthew Stafford. But I think there's a bunch of teams like the Denver Broncos who are on this list, the San Francisco 49ers who are on this list, the Chicago Bears. I mean, there's a multitude of teams that if you add Matt Stafford to them, all of a sudden, Teets, they become a playoff contender.
Well, let's put it this way. You put Matt Stafford on the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, he might not have the touchdown and interception ratio that Big Ben has, but Pittsburgh would be in a much better situation right now if they had Matt Stafford versus Big Ben. So, frankly, I think there's 16 teams in the NFL where Stafford could go and be the better quarterback.
You might be undefeated right now if you had Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a huge jump. I think there's going to be a lot of teams, including ones with veteran quarterbacks, like maybe New Orleans, depending on what Drew Brees does, and if Sean Payton doesn't get too obsessed with Taysom Hill, who might go after a guy like Stafford.
Dude, if I'm Denver, I'd go after Matthew Stafford. If I'm most of the teams on here, I'd go after Matthew Stafford. Hell, if I'm the Jets, I like Sam Darnold. If they got the second pick, instead of going for Justin Fields, see if he can get him. I mean, I like Darnold, but Matt Stafford, to me, in the right situation, can win a Super Bowl, McGinnis.
Yeah, that's just the unfortunate part of him being stuck on the Lions.
Well, it's always unfortunate for anybody to be stuck on the Lions, and that's usually the unfortunate part. All right, number 30, the Cincinnati Bengals, who destroyed the Pittsburgh Steelers 27-17 behind Ryan Finley, who once again threw for 87 yards, and they won 27-17. Ryan Finley, though, I mean, Sam, were you there when Ryan Finley came to our practice?
I was.
Okay, so did you give him any tips on how to beat Sam Teets' Pittsburgh Steelers? Is this what happened here?
No. No. I still will say, though, I remember him saying he felt like when he started last year, he wasn't ready. Yeah. So good job for stepping into the situation.
Dude, I'm sorry, but I watched him, and he still thinks that.
Hey, but he still helped them win a game, so you know what? Even though he thinks that, good job on a win.
Yeah, great job, Ryan Finley. All right, 31 the New York Jets, 32 Jacksonville. I don't think there's any doubt who the two were. I don't think there's any doubt 30 through 32. I'm just happy my team's not 31 or 32. But the New York Jets, I mean, they won a game, so I imagine they'll phone the rest of the season in. The Jacksonville Jaguars, hopefully for their sake, will phone the rest of the season in, because I think if you throw Trevor Lawrence there, I think they can double their wins next year, Teets.
They have 5 or 6 picks in the first 65 picks of the upcoming draft. If they seriously,
they got a lot of cap space too.
Yeah, I mean, they're the top 5 in cap space as well. If you're looking at a general manager spot, I understand the ownership is maybe questionable. The team right now is not very good. But if you're a general manager and you're getting a starter, that many picks in the top 65, plus basically a guaranteed Trevor Lawrence and that cap space, hell, I'm going to Jacksonville. That's a great spot to rebuild right now.
Well, the thing is this, when you talk about the ownership, it's not that they're incompetent. It's they keep hiring incompetent people. But the thing about the ownership is they give you plenty of time to hang yourself there. So you're going to have time to fix this also. So I don't think that this is a bad situation. I think this is the best GM job you could get right now in the NFL, McGinnis.
So for Trevor Lawrence coming in, would you start with those remaining picks soon after? Would you start getting defensive players, or would you start trying to build around Trevor Lawrence after that?
Offensive line.
Offensive tackle.
Hey, you know what? I think this offensive line and second round, third round, center and guards. I mean, and you've got enough cap space here. Maybe you can go out and get a big time. I don't know which free agent wide receivers are going to be available coming up this year, but you could go out and throw some money. And the thing is this, last year, nobody wants to come to Jacksonville. Now with Trevor Lawrence coming in, maybe somebody does want to come to Jacksonville, this kind of a name, this a big time receiver. So when you look at that, Trevor Lawrence makes them viable. It's just like Joe Burrow being a Bengal makes the Bengals viable. It's just like the Detroit Lions being the Detroit Lions makes them never viable.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have Calvin Johnson, Barry Sanders, Matthew Stafford. It doesn't matter. You're instantly not viable.
Well, how about this, though? I think the Detroit Lions, if they have Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence, are instantly viable. Because I think those are two guys that I think are absolutely can't miss prospects. And I think no matter where they go, they're going to be so good that they're going to win. As long as you can put a line in them and keep them from getting their knee blown out against Washington.
Yeah, that actually would, and I never thought I'd be able to say this, but actually that would be one advantage if Joe Burrow was ever on the Lions, is he would actually have a slightly better offensive line than the Bengals have.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the defense wouldn't be as good, and they don't have a running back or wide receivers like the Bengals. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Plus, you would have to live in Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you want to get, if you want to get shot, it's better to live there. Of course, a lot of people get shot in Cincinnati too, so that's probably a bad comparison. All right, right now, if I had to ask you to pick your 2 Super Bowl teams, Sam McGinnis, who would they be?
Chiefs, Packers.
It's a rematch of Super Bowl I. Sam Teets.
I'll go Chiefs Saints. I hate taking the front runners because I know it's not going to be both those teams. It never is the front runners. So it's never going to be those. We're never actually going to get a matchup between the 2 number ones. But at the same time, I don't see Green Bay being able to beat anyone because of that defense, and you know how to beat them. Everyone knows how to beat them. I think it's more likely we see Kansas City lose out to New Orleans.
I think New Orleans is definitely the best team. So I would say New Orleans and Buffalo, but I'm not going to say that. I think it's going to be Buffalo or Tennessee out of the AFC. I'm going to go with Buffalo because I've been riding them all year. And nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. But y'all probably don't get that Chris Berman reference to the old NFL primetime show in the 80s. But because both of you were like 20 years away from being born. But in the NFC, I think just about anybody can pull this off. I mean, Tampa Bay and Tom Brady still are intriguing to me because if Leonard Fournette all of a sudden could become Leonard Fournette or Ronald Jones becomes Ronald Jones, they could win it. I still have a hard time with them not being able to run the ball, but I don't want to pick front runners. That's too easy. I think the Saints are the best team in the NFC. I think Tom Brady will get back to the Super Bowl, and I think that it'll be Tampa Bay and Buffalo.
Yeah, that's a fun one. That was a good showdown, right? I mean, you got Josh Allen on the one side, Tom Brady on the other. And really, the Buccaneers are so close. I mean, right? If they just fix the offense, I think they're there. We've seen what the defense can do. We know the defensive front is probably the best in the NFL talent-wise. They just need to play like they did in the second half against Atlanta. Just use that offense. Just repeat that. I think Bruce Arians has overcomplicated this whole season for Tampa Bay. He's made everything too much about him or too much about his style of play. Just focus on what Tom Brady does as well. You have the pieces to make this.
Yeah, so Bruce Arians is the only thing that scares me off of it. But, of course, we know Sean Payton is the master of losing heartbreaking championship games or playoff games. It's just they do it all the time. So we don't know if that's an issue there. If you look at the rest of it, Russell Wilson's still sitting there. I'm going to count out Kyler Murray. Count out the Bears if they were to get in. I mean, the Washington football team might be able to pull an upset here or there. So I think it's Tampa Bay or New Orleans. I hate to disrespect Green Bay, but my problem there is Tampa Bay and New Orleans could go to Green Bay and just run the ball down their throats, and there wouldn't be a damn thing they could do about it. And I really think in a playoff situation in Green Bay, Sean Payton would do that. And Alvin Kamara is a beast. And we saw what Tampa Bay's defense did to him. So I'm going to go Tampa Bay against Buffalo. I think the Buffalo Bills win the Super Bowl.
Really? Now, that would be interesting. That'd be a fun one to see that happening. Buffalo Bills may will be crazy over that. They've got a huge presence there. They got a really good fan base, or a really loud fan base at the very least. They would love to see that happen.
Well, they don't really have a loud fan base now because they all have to be 6 feet apart with masks on. Actually,
look, you go out and insult the Bills anywhere, they will find you.
Well, this is the thing, though. Are the Buffalo Bills fans really that good? I remember like in 1985, before they went to the 4 Super Bowls, the Bengals played the Bills, the Browns played the Bills in Rich Stadium, and I think there was like 14,000 people there. And they weren't social distancing. That's just how many people showed up. So,
yeah, I don't know if they travel as well.
The Buffalo Sabres always choke, don't they, Sam?
The Buffalo Sabres don't even make the playoffs.
Oh, so they're like the Red Wings or the Lions. All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap the show up. I want to thank Sam for coming on. What was that? What are you mumbling about, McGinnis?
I said 11 cups, 1 year, just a few years. Like, everybody's going to have a few bad years.
Yeah, but they were almost all before you were born.
2008, 2010. No, I was still born for all that. I was just a bit younger.
Yeah, you just don't remember it. All right, remember, McGinnis, turn your pads in so we don't have to call the police. You can follow Sam McGinnis at, what was that, Sam, on Twitter?
At Samuel McG22.
And we can follow Sam Teets at SamTeets33. When are we going to pick the games, Sam Teets? We do it tomorrow or what?
I'll be around tomorrow if you want to.
What time?
I can do normal showtime. I can do 1 o'clock tomorrow if you want.
I may have to go slightly later if that would be all right, like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
I think three would be fine as well. I can do 3, I believe.
All right. I may have to do some Christmas shopping, but I got to pick out something nice for McGinnis. I'm going to get him a new Michigan State hat so he quits wearing that one he bought in 2008 when the Red Wings won it all.
Actually, funny enough, I got that Michigan State hat inside the U of M hospital. So for whatever reason,
Why would they have a Michigan State hat at the U of M? I mean, it's Michigan. They've went to hell ever since Jim Harbaugh burnt down the school, right?
No, I mean it was given to me inside. That's where I
know. It's all right. But all right, guys, we're going to go ahead. We're going to wrap it up. Make sure you check us out on Rockfin. It's free to sign up. Just got to use your email. Make sure you hit us up there. And me and Sam Teets will be back. And we'll see if Steve Risley wants to come on and pick the games because that's always fun. But keep an eye out on the Twitter in the morning. We'll post a showtime. And tonight at 8 o'clock, we will be doing the Cincinnati Bengals weekly show with myself, former Cincinnati Bengal Joe Kelly, and Ty Robbins, as we will recap the Cincinnati Bengals beatdown of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was fun.
I'm going to have to hear about this for forever.
Yeah, because you don't play us again until next year sometime. And next year, you probably won't even have a quarterback. And we'll have Joe Burrow. So just get ready for constant whoopings from the Cincinnati Bengals.
Okay, Mike. All right. Don't go that far.
Who's going to be your quarterback next year then, T?
Mason Rudolph.
Mason. I'll buy one Mason.
Duck Hodges.
There goes your 2
Josh Dobbs. We can go back into history of all the backups Big Ben's had, and they all suck. So
just looking behind Mason Rudolph.
Duck Hodges, is it? Is he still
Duck Hodges.
You got the Duck Dynasty coming into Pittsburgh. So I can tell you this. Baker Mayfield, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson.
Pittsburgh's about to get ruled.
Yeah.
Damn. It's going to be last place every year for the next decade.
All right. Let's not go that far.
Mike Tomlin's going to get fired.
Legit.
Mike Tomlin's getting fired in the next 2 years, and Marvin Lewis will take over in Pittsburgh.
No, that'd be worse. I can deal with a bad quarterback situation. I can't deal with Marvin Lewis.
Marvin's awesome. He never gets mad, and he just kind of smirks. He's an asshole. All right, we're going to go ahead. We're going to wrap the show up. But for now, for Sam McGinnis, Sam Teets, I'm Mike Goodpastor. You've been listening and watching The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.